Hello, everybody. I'm Sam Menser with the Chattanooga Public Library. I serve as the recording studio instructor and manager downtown at the main branch. I want to continue my album spotlight series, and since we were in the late 60s, early 70s with Jimi Hendrix's Cry of Love, I want to continue that with one of my personal favorite records by Fleetwood Mac, and just in general. It's Then Play On, and this was released in 1969. This is just a great record for me. It's very versatile. It's got a lot of different styles combined, and it's sort of a departure of what Fleetwood Mac was doing at the time. Now, many people probably think of Fleetwood Mac with Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham. Well, they didn't come until later, until after a few different lineup changes. They came towards the middle to late 70s, and that's definitely the most popular version of the group. But they started out, Fleetwood, the drummer, and McVie, the bass player, that's the name, Fleetwood Mac, have been the only consistent members in the band for the entirety. And Peter Green, a British guitar player, was the founder of the group, and he named them Fleetwood Mac. So when he was asked about it, he said, because I'm going to quit the band eventually, and they're going to be left with the name. So it was a great gift, I guess, that Peter Green gave the rhythm section. But when they first started out, they tried to play authentic Chicago blues, which is an electric blues style. And if you listen to their first records and singles, the self-titled album, and then Mr. Wonderful was the second album. If you listen to these, they are very much not only trying to play similar songs or covering songs by Chicago bluesmen, but also the recording methods. We're live in the studio. There's not a lot of overdubs or effects or anything like that. It's very raw, and that's what they were going for. And I think they achieved it very closely. So after those two albums, Danny Kerwin was invited to join, another guitar player and singer who also had a strong blues background. They toured all over the place during this period, and they were influenced by some San Francisco bands like the Grateful Dead and Santana. And Santana, ironically, covered a Peter Green song, Black Magic Woman, and it became a massive international hit, and probably helped pay Peter Green's bills up until he passed away, unfortunately, last year. So that being said, that kind of steered the direction of the band away from just playing blues. Now, they always added a few old school, Little Richard rock and roll songs and stuff in their set too, but it steered them into a new direction of experimenting with ballads, even some country influence. You had jams and this sort of blues rock that was popular at the time, this hybrid between rock and roll and blues. And the jams were really influenced by the West Coast in the United States because just, freestyling, basically, free for all, improvising and creating music as it came to you. So the next record that came out was recorded between 68 and 69 when it was released in the fall of 69, and that's this album, Then Play On. This is just a absolute smorgasbord of styles and influences, and it was produced by the band, which can sometimes lead to, I guess, wandering around or floundering without a concise idea, because you have these different personalities who are all doing one job, which is the production job, the producer's job. So during this time, it was said by the engineer, who I'm going to talk about in a little bit here, that Peter Green and Danny Kerwin, the songwriters in the group, would pretty much, maybe they would bring a song to the table and they would have the band play through it, maybe not, in the studio, and then they would just work on it themselves. So it became this very sort of, isolated recording method, which is a huge departure from when they did everything together in the early days. You'll find songs on here that are drastically different from the albums that preceded it, and I encourage you to check it out. So going back to the engineer, Martin Birch is his name, and he's one of my favorite engineers of all time. He started as an engineer. He worked on albums like this. He worked with Deep Purple. He worked with Rainbow. Then into the 80s, he started producing as well as engineering. He was in that wave of engineers, early recording engineers that became producers and then did both jobs. And he worked with Whitesnake, Black Sabbath, and most famously Iron Maiden. He produced all those Iron Maiden records in the 80s and until the 90s, and he retired. He actually retired fairly young, and I don't know if it's true or not, but they've said that he just went and played golf for the rest of his days, and unfortunately we lost him last year as well. But Martin Birch, to me, his key quality was to capture the band as they really sound, and then enhancing it to without altering it. So it's the band, how they sound, but enhanced. They may sound even better, but without changing them too much, without putting so much of a personal stamp on it. And I think that that's one of the highest achievements of an engineer and a producer as well, because a lot of producers will have their own sound, so to speak. So what makes this album so great, in my opinion, is the way that Martin Birch was able to tie together all of these different songs. And if we open it up, we can see there's also multiple versions. This version has 12 songs. So you'll find the original version, which I have a copy of. It's the British release that has 14 songs. And then this was the early American version. And then there's another American version that came out where they scrapped 2 more songs and added the single and B-side for Oh Well, which was a very strong single. You may have heard that before. But so there's actually like 3 versions of this record that came out. There was this difference between British and American releases at the time where, maybe there was a compilation album that had a couple songs that ended up on the record in America. So then in America, when they released this album, they scrapped those songs. But they're on the British release, which was finally remastered and released probably about, I'd say, 8 years ago or so, and 8 or 9 years ago. And it's probably the version that you should check out. And we have all kinds of Fleetwood Mac stuff available through Hoopla in the library. But that's, to me, that's the version that the band intended to release, and that's the version that I think that should be explored first. It was not the first version I heard, so I had always been on the lookout for it and bought the original British release from eBay or something as a record to hear it, and it flows so much better, in my opinion, without just jamming a single in the middle of the record. So check out that original version and in the remastered form. So some of the songs on here that are really highlights to me that you can check out as an engineer. So Reverb, let's talk about that for a second. Peter Green didn't have like a signature effect, like a wah pedal or a chorus pedal or something like that. Reverb would be his signature effect, besides just his immaculate playing. But if you listen to the reverb on his vocals, and this goes back to his days when he was in a band called the Blues Breakers, but his guitar had just amazing reverb on it. Songs like Closing My Eyes, which is a ballad, listen to the reverb on there. I mean, it's haunting. Same with Before the Beginning, which is the last song on the record. His voice is just... it's like otherworldly, the reverb that they use on there. And what he's singing about is, that song actually has some blues roots, but you wouldn't just think of it as a blues when you hear it. And if you're wondering how some of the guitar sounds are on that song, he uses a Fender 6-string bass, which is a regular bass guitar, adding 2 strings. So it basically is an electric guitar, standard electric guitar, an octave down from E to E. So he gets some really cool tones out of that, and he uses that all over this record, also on Rattlesnake Shake, which is a heavy rocker. I believe Aerosmith would play that in concerts, so you may have heard that version. And on also some Danny Kirwan highlights would be Although the Sun is Shining. It's almost like a pre-World War II ballad with just some haunting reverb on that track as well. Danny Kirwan also has another great song. It's When You Say, which is, lyrically it's not as strong as it is musically. And there's a lot of guitar overdubs, harmonic, like creating a counterpoint basically, where you're playing either a different melody over top of another melody, or you're playing different notes to create a harmony with two different guitar passes. And that just goes to show you that they pretty much locked themselves in the studio when they worked on this album. And then the last stuff I want to mention is Underway, which is a cut from a long jam, and they cut part of this in an in-studio jam, and they cut part of that, and they made it flow really well into the next song, which is on the original release, is One Sunny Day, which is almost a Cream Led Zeppelin type heavy song. And then the Madge jams. So Fighting for Madge and Searching for Madge are two awesome, showcases for guitar playing between Green and Kirwan. And Green absolutely just lights up the sky with his playing on there. But what Martin Birch was able to do was to cut these long, 15-minute pieces down and select and highlight the best parts and expertly weave them into the rest of the fabric of the record. And it's like a collage almost when you look at this record. But he's doing that on tape. So it's a lot harder than, clicking around on Pro Tools or whatever DAW you're using on your computer. This was, done with tape. So Martin Birch was definitely earned the term engineer. Absolutely. It's just incredible how they put this record together and made it work. And I think at the time it was maligned a little bit, but over the years it's been much more appreciated. The liner notes on the reissue from a few years ago, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, longtime writer for Rolling Stone, absolutely raves about it and considers it a lost classic, essentially. So I urge you to check that out. And listen closely to some of the techniques that they're using on here, and try to incorporate them in your own music, no matter what style of music you're into, from R&B to blues to pop to rock to rap even. If you check out the single "Oh Well" by Fleetwood Mac that came out around during this time, Peter Green is essentially rapping on it. And then they're playing some guitars and some heavy guitars. So it's a pretty cool era of music in general. But that's all I got for this week. Next week, I'm going to look at the Michael Jackson classic. We're going to hop up into the 80s and look at the Michael Jackson classic Thriller. And that's one I'm really excited about talking about. So take care, everybody. Be safe. Check out Then Play On. All right. Take care.